Hello, vampires. Welcome to Gamertopia. For Season 2 of Diablo 4, I've decided to go rogue. Literally.
Greetings.
I've never played rogue before this playthrough, but it has been a ton of fun during Season of Blood. With higher world tiers giving higher experience, I wanted to get there as quick as possible and came up with this build, which has allowed me to get to level 50 in just a matter of hours. So let's go over it so you can too. Starting off with our basic skill, we are going to take 1 rank of puncture, and we'll also take enhanced puncture. For our core skill, we'll be taking 1 rank of twisting blades. This will be our main enemy melting ability. Then we'll grab enhanced twisting blades for the nice 30% increase when the blades return to us. You can take improved twisting blades at this point if you want, but until we get further down the skill tree, we won't have much daze synergy happening, so I opted for advanced twisting blades for the cooldown reduction. Next, we'll go back to our basic tree and grab fundamental puncture. This will allow us to make enemies vulnerable, which is still an incredible status effect in Season 2. Now that our agility tree is opened up, we'll take 1 rank of dash. You can go with shadow step at this point if you would rather use the skill, but I like dash for leveling, mostly for the increased mobility. In order to unlock our subterfuge tree, we'll go back to our core tree and max out our twisting blade skills to really start building our offensive capabilities. Now that the subterfuge tree is unlocked, we are going to take a rank of poison trap so that we can get some more AoE damage. This will help us with handling larger groups of mobs. Then we'll take enhanced poison trap for the knockdown effect. We'll also want to take a rank Dark Shroud, which is going to give us some damage reduction and movement speed. To add to that, we'll also take Enhanced Dark Shroud to give us the 14% chance for our shadows to not be consumed, and we'll also take Subverting Dark Shroud to give us a 4% increase to movement speed. Now the imbuement tree is opened up, so we'll grab a rank of Shadow Imbuement. This will give us more AoE damage and mob clearing capabilities, due to the mobs exploding upon death and damaging all the enemies surrounding them. Then we'll take Enhanced Shadow Imbuement for the increased crit, and Blended Shadow Imbuement, which will make enemies that get hit by Shadow Imbuement's explosions vulnerable. We'll grab 1 rank of Shadow Crash, which does give us a slight chance to stun, but we are mostly taking it just to get 3 ranks of Consuming Shadows. This will help a ton with our energy management. Next, we'll head back to the agility tree and grab 3 ranks of Concussive. This will give us 12% increased crit chance for 3 seconds against the enemies that we've knocked down with our Poison Trap. At this point, we will also take Countering Poison Trap for the 30% chance to reset our imbuement skill cooldowns. We will not be using any ultimate skills in this build, but we will be using some of the passives. To start, we'll take 3 ranks of Trap Mastery, which is going to give us another 12% crit chance against vulnerable and crowd-controlled enemies for 4 seconds. As you can see, we're really starting to stack crit and vulnerable synergy with this build. Before we move on to our key passive, we'll want to grab 1 rank of Adrenaline Rush, which will help us with our energy management. It's also going to allow us to grab 3 ranks of Haste. The Haste passive gives us 15% movement speed while at or above 50% energy, and 15% attack speed while below 50% energy. Now we can grab our key passive skill, which will be Momentum. This gives us increased damage reduction, energy regeneration, and movement speed when we have 3 stacks of momentum. You'll gain a stack of momentum each time you hit an enemy who is stunned, dazed, or frozen, and you'll also get it if you hit an enemy from behind. Now we're going to build on this key passive by taking advantage of the enemies that we can affect with the daze status. We'll head back to the agility tree and take Enhanced Dash, which gives us a 15% increased crit damage, and then we'll take Discipline Dash, which will slow enemies. If the enemies are already slowed, it's going to daze them. With this, every time our puncture slows an enemy, we can use dash to daze them, or you can dash an enemy twice and take advantage of the momentum key passive that way. If you haven't already taken improved twisting blades, you'll want to make sure to swap advanced twisting blades for this to give us even more dazing effects. Then we'll go down to grab 3 ranks of the exploit passive, which will give us 18% increased damage to healthy and injured enemies, but this is also going to unlock Malice for us. We'll take 3 ranks of that, which is going to give us 9% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Next, we'll go back to the agility tree and take 3 ranks of Weapon Mastery. This is going to give us 15% increased damage to healthy enemies when we use daggers, and 9% increased damage when we use swords. While leveling, it doesn't really matter which you use, just use whichever does the most damage at that time. Take 3 ranks of Sturdy to give us 12% damage reduction from close enemies, 3 ranks of Siphoning Strikes for the lucky hit chance to heal for 3%, and also 3 ranks of Stutter Step for 15% movement speed whenever we crit an enemy. With our last few points, we'll take 2 ranks of Rapid Gambits to reduce the cooldown on our evade when we daze an enemy, and 1 rank of Trick Attacks, which is going to give us a knockdown chance on dazed enemies. Now for our specialization, I would definitely go with Inner Sight while you're leveling. This will give you unlimited energy whenever you fill your Inner Sight gauge, and energy is likely going to be the only thing that's going to stop you with this build from completely melting your enemies until level 50. Whenever your Inner Sight gauge fills, just start spamming twisting blades and watch every mob or boss get obliterated. For Vampiric Powers, we'll start with Prey on the Weak. This is going to give us increased damage to vulnerable enemies, but it's also going to make enemies who have your Vampiric Curse vulnerable. You'll also want to take Accursed Touch for the increased % chance to inflict enemies with Vampiric Curse. This will stack your Accursed Souls, which will be released every time you use Dash, and it's going to increase their damage by 200%. Next, we'll take Ravenous, which is going to give us a chance to increase our attack speed by a percentage of our movement speed. And you'll also want to grab Metamorphosis. This will turn you into a cloud of bats and make you unstoppable anytime you use your Evade. Enemies along your path will also be inflicted by your Vampiric Curse and take an increased amount of physical damage. This is essentially going to turn your Dash into an offensive skill. Lastly, we'll take Undying. This is just going to help with your survivability. It'll heal you for a percentage every time you use a skill. As far as gear goes, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Go for high dexterity, intelligence, attack speed, but it's really not going to make a difference at this point since you're going to be swapping out your gear fairly often. I would grab the Blade Dancer aspect, which can be obtained by completing Jalal's Vigil in Skazglan. This aspect will make your twisting blades orbit you when they return, causing 10 to 15% damage for each time they hit an enemy, and then increases the damage by 20 to 30% on the orbit, depending on the distance the blades traveled upon return to you. And then if you put this on your bow or crossbow, those percentages are doubled. Now, as I said before, every time your inner sight procs, you start spamming Twisting Blades, you'll have a frenzy of blades spinning around you, and it'll completely demolish anything that gets too close. Hope this video helps you during the Season of Blood. Happy leveling!